Hi there, tarot lovers. Um, I got this reverse moon the other day in a reading with other cards involved as well. But it was the one card that's kind of stood out and made me ask a lot of questions. And some of the questions that I was asking obviously are going to be related to the past, because the moon reflects on the details of our past, the subconscious stories and the inherited patterns that we have in our subconscious and unconscious self. But what came to my mind straight away was fear. And the reason that the moon is so related to a lot of fear stories and consequently has a darker undertone to it is because that's what we repress and suppress, and so that's what gets locked away in the subconscious, and we don't consciously think about fear, we don't consciously dive into it. Because this is reversed, the questions that we find ourselves, and with any tarot card that we pull, when reversals come up, a lot of people will go, reverse? What does that mean? It just means there are more questions to ask, and it just means we have to ask those questions with a little bit more authenticity, a little bit more honesty, because there's something beautiful in being able to take something that's not clear and make it clear. Take something that causes doubt and confusion and bring clarity from that and bring understanding from that. Anyway, this moon card came up, and I started just writing a little bit about fear stories and all the different types of fear there are, like fear of fear of death is the big one probably, but fear of rejection is another big one. Fear of separation is a big one. Fear of loss, fear of losing love especially, and things sometimes, fear of losing what we're attached to. Fear of judgment is a big one as well. And there's fear of failure. There's fear of being seen. There's being afraid of our truth and being afraid of honesty as well, because we have to own our own stories and own our own judgments. Anyway, as I was writing, I was just relating one fear to the other and seeing how they're all connected, and they all seem to connect in this original story of how we as individual consciousness, and I was just say that with a little smirk on the side of my face, because we are apparent individual consciousnesses running around in individual bodies in a very individualistic, separate 3D dimensional world. But that's an apparent story. On a deeper level, I know that we are kind of cosmic beings, if you like, and we are just cells in the body of the universal mind, or God. And there's this story, in the Bible of Eden, which is called, where Adam and Eve experienced the fall out of love and bliss and paradise into the separation, the idea. And it's not that when you eat from the tree of knowledge that you lose your innocence, but you actually start, in essence it's that you lose the innocence of knowing that you are pure love and pure oneness, and instead you lose that, and you have to forget that you are pure love and pure oneness and pure God energy, and you have to start believing that you're not, and that is the fall into the world, or into manifestation. And so I'm writing about this, and I'm just seeing how the fears are all related to this fall, because this fall is a loss, it's a death. We died to love, and we were born into craziness, and we were born into manifestation of all of this universe and the madness that exists inside of it. We're born into duality, and I think on some subconscious level, we all know this. We know that we are love. We kind of sense it. We don't maybe talk about it in these terms, but we sense that we've come from this essence which is pure, which is amazing, which is just light, love, bliss, oneness. And there's part of us that wants to find it again, and kind of all of our endeavors in life are seeking this, that, and everything else are really just seeking our truest essence, because we kind of know it's there somehow. We know that there's something more beautiful for us to we know that, and I'm just trying to find the words for it because it doesn't even make sense. Something more beautiful for us to experience. Yeah, it's not about the experience. It is in certain ways, but it's partly it's about losing our identity, and it's quite strange because we feel this loss, and fear was born from this separation, because inside of oneness, what is the reason? There's no reason, there's no meaning for fear. But the moment you experience the death of that oneness and the birth of individuality, the birth of separation and duality, then there's a reason. Then there's a dark and there's a light. Then there's something beautiful, and then there's something, hang on a minute, that's slightly different. And that is the birth of fear. And fear only exists as we hold on to and because of our attachment to separation, individuality, duality, and all this story. And yet we're afraid of losing our identity. We're afraid of losing our individuality. We're afraid of losing our essence. And it's a kind of, I think it just sparked me as incredibly ironical that we're afraid of death, and yet the death of our individuality would lead to coming home to oneness, coming home to the source of who we are. Not that I'm promoting death in any way, shape or form, but because our I think part of our purpose for being here is to just detach a little bit, or let go, or surrender a little bit of our individualistic identity, and feel the connectedness that is our essence, that is behind our attachment to separation. And the irony is that we're so afraid of death, and yet we're so afraid of losing our identity, and yet when we do so, when we lose a little bit of our identity, or when our identity is willing to surrender itself, or when we're willing to let go of our needs, that's when we find peace. When we need to let go for a moment, I mean, this is just a moment experience of our desires, then we find a little bit more peace. When we let go of the idea that I'm not worthy enough, we find peace, we find love. When we let go of the idea that I'm separate, the only idea that is left is that we are one. And that's love. And so we're afraid to let go of ourselves and go home. And it's ironical because a little bit of letting go of ourselves will bring us more love, bring us more connection. And different ways to talk about this thing, because we can talk about the higher self and finding the higher self and letting go of the little self. And so these are just words. These are just words which speak about where fear is born in our bodies and in our lives, and how we relate to it. But whether it's a fear of rejection that is, maybe historically, if we're rejected from our community, from our tribe, from our family, we're going to be more vulnerable alone, and we're going to have a lack of safety, and we'll probably die. Well, yeah, so it all comes back to this fear of death, and this fear of the death of the body. We're born into the body, and it seems like an amazing opportunity that we have. And it is an amazing opportunity, but the opportunity that we have in this body is to find the light again, to find the love again, to remember and remind each other as often as possible, and to be sincere, whatever that might look like. But yeah, all of this babbling came from the moon, and I just feel that some of our fears are, misplaced, to say the least, because our essence is where we'll always end up. We'll always end up going home. No matter what happens, we're always going to end up going home. And our journey in this body is a journey to remember the love. And the more we practice remembering the love, the more we'll probably let go of the need to be special and ego bodies running around, feeling a sense of self-worth, and the more we'll just be honest, loving, peaceful people. Fear takes that away, for sure. I'm not dissing fear. I'm not saying that it's a bad experience, but it is. Let's just remember that it comes from this memory of having lost love in the first place. And I think that's the only thing we're afraid of, losing love again and again and again and again. But in every moment that we hold on to the idea that we are really individual, separate beings, in a way that holding on promotes losing that love, promotes it more consistently and constantly. And the more we buy into how different and special and how we strive to be, better versions of our physical self, which is not a bad thing, but the more that separates us from the world instead of connects us from the world, then we're going to probably end up feeling fear for either one thing or another. And the more importance we put on this, the more crazy afraid I'll be of losing this. The more importance we put on anything in the world, then that's where our fears lie. And it's not about not putting importance on things or stuff, but it's about balancing that with what's really important is the love that we can bathe in, that we can throw stones in the universal pool of life and ripple out to the universe, and just sharing something beautiful from your hearts, I guess. Anyway, some of my babbling of this morning. Have a wonderful day, guys.